Welcome everybody to Now I See a Person Institute. Today we have the wonderful Dr. Susan Swim, the delightful David Abramovich, and myself, Emma McIntosh. And today we are speaking and introducing you to a very, very inspiring person who is going to share some part of her journey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we want you to talk about whatever you think would be of importance to you in sharing the journey that you've had and your search for surpassing some of the difficult times that you've experienced.
Yes, of course. Well, I do want to talk about the role that Now I See a Person has played in helping me through my mental health struggles and my struggles earlier this year. Um, I had multiple hospitalizations and I was struggling very severely with my mental health. It was to the point where I was experiencing a lot of paranoia and I was not able to focus. I wasn't able to sleep very well. And I was just in a constant state of fear. And being in the hospitals kind of exacerbated all of that because, they were very quick to stick a lot of labels on me. They wanted to tell me I had this disorder and that disorder, and that this was something I was going to be dealing with for the rest of my life, that I'd need to be on medication for the rest of my life, and basically that I couldn't trust my own brain. And so I was dealing with all of that and didn't really see a way out. And I thought I was damaged. I was having a lot of difficulty focusing. I am normally a big reader. I love to read, and I could not even get past a paragraph. I couldn't focus. And I was scared that everything they told me in the hospital was true and that I was going to be just another, you know, diagnosis. And so, around the time where I had gotten out of the hospital, my third visit in 1 year, I was introduced to the Institute and Dr. Swim and David. And I was able to talk to you guys about, and hear your encouragement and hear that, no, like, there isn't anything wrong with me, that I would get through it, that you've seen so many people get through it. And you guys just shed so much hope into my situation where I thought there was none. Um, and it really just helped me see that, you know, I was going to be able to come out the other end of this situation. Um, I hadn't heard any hope in the hospital. I hadn't heard any hope from the doctors. It was all medication. It was all, we're going to treat this, but no talk of healing. And, it was just so discouraging for me. I thought like I would never be quote unquote normal again.
Right.
And, what you guys helped me realize was that um, my story and the things I had been through were what contributed to what I was going through. And it wasn't necessarily that my brain was broken or something. It was just an accumulation of life events and traumas that naturally played out, and there was a possibility of healing, and there was, um, you know, a reason to hope and a reason to see a new way forward. And, that hope and that positive expectation is something that really helped me get through. And now I'm able to go to school. I'm back in school and I'm able to focus, I'm able to study. And, you know, nothing has turned out the way the doctors said it would,
Right.
thankfully.
Right.
And I just want people to know that it's possible to heal in the realm of mental health, that you don't have to be stuck with the diagnosis for the rest of your life. And um, you can um, you can come out the other end in a better way than you were before.
Right. Right. So, one of the things that when you were talking and, I was thinking, like, I was putting myself in your shoes and I was thinking, like, what would have happened if I was your age and I would have had those rapid hospitalizations, and I would have been reaching out to the community that was helping me. And they were telling me that I had something incurable that would never get well. And I would have to learn to, uh, basically deal with a disability. When I heard you talking about that, and that it just wasn't one clinician, it was many clinicians. And and how that would have affected me. I think the stark fear would have been almost too much for me to have handled. That this was a life sentence, and that there was no hope for me to be the person that I had before.
Mhm.
And you know, could you kind of just like talk about how that was? Because for me, it would be like being told that I had a terminal illness.
Yeah, no, it is a very like scary thing to hear, you know, um such a harsh diagnosis
Mhm,
from medical professionals, because they were actually trying to tell me that, I was psychotic.
mhm,
And you know up until this point of this year, I had never experienced any psychotic episodes, had never been, um, you know, even thinking in that realm or of putting myself in that category. And they were so confident about it and so sure of themselves that yes, this is what you are, even though they only spoke with me for 10 minutes in the day.
mhm,
And it's very discouraging, it's scary, and it's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, because you start to doubt yourself and um kind of lose a handle on your own self-image.
mhm,
And it's it was just a very discouraging and scary thing. And you think like, oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. I don't know if I can deal with that. And so it can get very dark potentially. And so that's why, speaking to you guys was it was such a shift from that. It was such a stark contrast because, the doctors had so much confidence in their diagnosis and their knowledge, but you guys had so much confidence as well,
Mhm.
in your hope for me and your hope for my ability to be well again. And that really just made a huge difference for me and the way I view myself and my situation.
So, one of, we were doing some podcasts and some blogs before we met, but the, the, I guess I was more driven after we spoke, um, at some point in time when you were saying that you couldn't find anything like in Googling social media that found parity with what we were talking about. And and I was, very naively, I was shocked that everything was so much pointing to that the trauma that you experienced, nobody even looked at it. It's almost like nobody cared. And that there was this label, and that if you just had the right skills to be able to somehow control the symptoms, then your life would be manageable. And it and I know that plus we don't have to get into this, but I know that also you've also found some you know social media things that people had actually wanted to euthanize, do euthanasia because they felt that there was no hope, that they had, you know, whatever label or diagnosis it was, that it still came from that theoretical orientation of a disease model, and that you would have that disease, such as if it was like diabetes or if it was heart disease, as we've heard many of our younger clients being told from 12 on up. And um, and and so that was really the impetus for us to up our game and have the voices of people who had experienced these hardships, who had experienced not only the hardships that the trauma created, but or within the trauma, but that the hardships of having of trying to receive help, and then in that receiving of help becoming more hopeless.
Mhm.
Like that, which was worse, the symptoms or the hopelessness that occurred with the well intentions of the treatment that you were receiving, and the explanations.
Yes, well, I was looking for um stories of people, out on the internet, um people who had been through things like me, and I wanted to know how it turned out for them. um were they able to get through it? Just looking for something to relate to.
Mhm.
And I had found, you know pretty much everything I found was in line with what the doctors were telling me at the hospital.
Mhm.
um you can manage things through medication. Like, you'll never be 100% well, but you know it can be managed. And don't expect, you know healing, don't expect it to go away. um just do the best you can with medication, and you know uh just manage your expectations.
Right.
um and it was really hopeless. And I did see things about like, euthanasia for people with severe mental health trauma and or mental health issues.
Trauma.
And it was very dark, and nobody was saying the things that the institute um, espouses. Nobody
Mhm.
was saying you can get well. No one was saying there is a path to healing. Those words aren't used. That language isn't used. And so, the further down the rabbit hole you go, kind of the darker and darker it gets. And I just feel like this space, this topic, this area of mental health um, needs so much hope injected into it, because um, what's out there right now is so dark and is so final. And people are so quick to throw a diagnosis and a label on you and say that, it's going to be that way for the rest of your life, when everyone's story is different. Everyone's journey is unique. Everyone's mind is unique. And there are usually, um, you know, pretty logical, reasonable um, paths to, how it got to be the way it is, for as far as people's mental health. And a big thing that I received from speaking with you guys at the institute is that there's nothing wrong with me, that what I had gone through um, is kind of just how my brain and how my body was trying to cope and trying to deal with all the trauma I've been through, and that there's nothing wrong with me, and that I could get better, and that, um, there is a way that's not spoken about, that's not talked about in mainstream healthcare. So, yeah, it can get very hopeless out there, and there does need to be more discussion about, you know, the possibility of healing in the realm of mental health, because I it's so hard to come by things like that.
So, no, I agree with you. And I think sometimes we become so insulated, like the Institute, because there's other institutes that are colleagues, like we're putting on a conference in November, and, we're putting on one, we're putting on, and then the group of us that are faculty at the Institute, and another one is with some colleagues from the Czech Republic, another one is with some colleagues from Canada, and we could do it with more colleagues if we, had the energy to do that. But it's on, each one is going to be a little bit on different types of um, conversations. Like one conversation is about ours is like shedding the limits of labels, and how labels attribute to um, they don't attribute to healing, but they almost attribute to taking on more trauma. And then we're doing another one with um, in the Czech Republic that is talking about different ways of even doing therapy, because I think that that we of course do the telehealth, and we do like coaching, and we do therapy, and we do whatever services that we feel are needed, not because we feel they're needed, but because the person that we're trying to help feels it's needed. So that might take many different forms. And so telehealth is one of those. But then, we have, of course, the horse ranch, where, is, I think, for all of us, one of our favorites. And, hopefully one day you'll come visit us or visit the horses.
I thought
And I know, right? But it's such a a normal, embracing environment. Like we don't even have people sign forms at the ranch. Like so from the moment that they hit the ranch, and this is something that I think Emma coined, is that their problems dissipate. They're not a problem. They're not a diagnosis when they come to the ranch. And then the other thing that we do is in the home therapy. So we go into people's homes so that we do everything that we can to make it not look clinical and sterile that unfortunately our field has learned to be, because that's not how the field was originally created. And 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 for us, our mission is so valuable to each of us, because we know that people can heal. Like my story, but I've been doing this for almost 4 decades, and I know that everybody that we have will heal. And I think that both Emma and David, first they trained with us, and then now of course they're on faculty and they're amazing clinicians, and that they're able to see that too. And we just want more people to know that there's alternatives out there. That I think there's certain states that talk a little bit about our theoretical orientation, and or philosophy to helping people in the ways that they want to be helped. But it was really when we were talking that I really was like, oh my goodness, like it's more vast than I thought, that people do not know that there are alternatives.